there's a big chasm there, and we're just trying to get them to speak similar languages. And can we start asking questions around what's the vision, long-term vision for the ministry? How do they feel their production experience is? What do they think is lacking on a Sunday morning? And then from there, a lot of times they're like, no, it's pretty good. And the tech guy's going like, what do you mean? Like, it's held together with duct tape and baling wire at this moment. They're like, sounds great, you know?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Pitfalls Vision podcast. My name is Deron. This is a space that we've created to talk about the how and the why your church's audio, video, and lighting systems should serve your church's vision, heartbeat, and DNA, not the other way around. Today in the house, we've got our OG, Nick Kofahl, current co-CEO and originator of the phrase Gear Follows Vision, co-originator, we should say. Yeah. And so, man, I'm so thankful to have you on the podcast to unpack this, because it's not just a bumper sticker that we have. No. It's not just a cute marketing saying that we throw out there. It's a heartbeat of who we are and wasn't here before you got here. So I want to dig into that. But first, I'd love to hear just a little bit about your ministry background. Cool. And just kind of where you came from, because you have a unique perspective on it. Yeah. But then also, I think our viewers need to know from your perspective as a Kansas City native, what the best barbecue is.
That's a tough question, but I'm going to do my best and probably get some comments on the things that I say. So
that'll be the number one comment.
That might be the only thing people get upset about in this podcast, and that's great. Yeah. Okay, so
we're here for it.
So yeah, ministry background is, it's interesting. Like, obviously I didn't come to Summit because I was a tech guy or a production guy. For me, I had always benefited from technology. I'm a pastor's kid. I'm a Bible college grad. I joined a team to help plant a church in the Bar District of Oklahoma State University. I helped co-pastor a thing for a little while. I was a youth pastor for a season. I hated that part. Junior hires are from Mars. And so that really wasn't a good fit for me, but you know what? I had to do it. And then I was also a musician. And so for me, I've gotten to see good technology and bad technology. When I was speaking and communicating, I was just grateful that we had a volunteer back there that was running sound that actually knew what they were doing, and that I'm a mover and talker. And when I'm preaching and really hammering a point home, I was really hopeful that I wasn't going to get a lot of feedback, when I step in front of the speaker with a microphone. And so, and I started to learn good mic techniques from those types of things. But so for me, and then, I kind of came to Colorado and was working in the tech industry. I was running an arts and creative conference with some friends. Yeah. And so that was, influencing a bunch of churches and being influenced by a bunch of churches. And so like, I've got this really crazy kind of background and story that ultimately kind of culminates in this opportunity to come work at Summit. I've been here now almost 12 years, which is crazy. Longest thing I've ever done in my career. It's also Colorado's the longest. I've lived in Colorado longer than I've lived anywhere else in my entire life. So I have to say Colorado's now home. But let's be clear, Kansas City always has a special place in my heart because I'm a Kansas City kid. So to answer your barbecue question, for me, Jack Stack reigns supreme, because if I have one day in Kansas City, I'm going to Jack Stack. Yeah. Why? They have the best sides. They have the best baked beans ever. Their burnt ends they do as an appetizer in this sizzling skillet smothered in sauce, and it's just glorious and heavenly. And you're just doing it wrong if you don't do that and you sort of like waddle out of there. Yeah. I will say one thing that I think is going to tick a lot of people off in Kansas City. Ooh. I think the best brisket's still in Texas.
I said no argument for me.
I said it. I believe it. Mm-hmm.
Experience matters.
I've eaten brisket all over the country, and I still come back to a straight up salt, pepper, maybe a little garlic, Texas style brisket. I think it's great. You don't need sauce. As I've gotten older, I'm more of a fan of the fatty brisket than I am lean. Yep. Taste buds change. They say every 7 years you kind of evolve into a new person. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just the time that I've been away from Kansas City. I used to think those were fighting words, if you ever said that to me when I lived there, or even just shortly after leaving there. However, right now I just have to tell you the truth. But that's I gave you more of a dissertation on barbecue than I did my own intro. So
yeah. You know what I think is so interesting about that is that I think every barbecue joint has a different perspective on what they want to bring to the world.
100%.
Right. And so like you talked about Jack Stack, you have these incredible sides, obviously still incredible meat, but they want to do something, even with your experience there, it's a sit down place, whereas Joe's is the gas station barbecue place, quick sandwich type thing, which is interesting. I think that ties into our churches, and their vision is unique to every single church. Right. We all have the Great Commission that we've been given.
Right.
And yet there is interesting and unique heartbeat and vision for every single church we work with. Yeah. Right. And so as it comes to our technology systems, let's unpack this. Like, where did GearFollow's vision really come from? Because it wasn't here when I got here and you helped implement it, but it came out of some situations that I think it'd be good to unpack.
Yeah. That's a killer segue. And I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really interesting. I mean, if you even follow any of there's a ton of cool YouTube shows out here, and hopefully you're watching this on YouTube, and hopefully you're subscribing and all those wonderful things. Please do that. But I'll tell you, there's some really cool stuff of, these guys that are interviewing different barbecue joints across Texas for the Texas Monthly, trying to understand, who they are, what they're bringing to the world. And, it's cool to watch those chefs and listen to them talk about their specific, unique voice.
Yeah.
It's difficult sometimes in the church world to get people to actually think about the uniqueness of what God's called them to.
Yep.
It's hard for them to articulate it. And ultimately, we kind of found ourselves in this position early on when I first started at Summit. Me and the founder, Chris Rayburn, were on the road a lot, talking to churches, talking to production people, doing different things. Because people call and go, hey, I want a PA, or hey, I want a new console, or hey, this thing's terrible and we want to do something different. There was a couple of moments that got a little awkward. And ultimately, I'm a questioner, and I'm always just a curious person. I want to know how things work. I want to understand depth and insight into things, and I'm always asking the question why, which drives some people around me crazy. However, we found ourselves in this moment where we had gotten a call from a production fella. We flew out there. To be honest, I cannot tell you what state it was in, but it probably was Texas, because we were, I think, the first several months of me being in Colorado, or being at Summit, I was in Texas, it felt like every week, in some way, shape, or form.
Welcome to Summit, go to Texas.
Yeah. I got a plane ticket before I ever had filled out paperwork for Summit. I mean, that was way back in the day. Yeah. But we were sitting there having this conversation about a PA upgrade and some other technology upgrades. There was with a production fellow. There was an executive pastor that knocked on the door, came into the conference room, introduces himself to us and goes, hi, who are you? Kind of a thing. I was like, oh, okay. He has no idea why we're here. Right. And then he goes, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
And there was a pulling back from the tech fella that we were talking to. And it almost felt like he got busted. Like it was like mom and dad just walked in the room, and it was like, wait, what? Kind of a moment. And he started kind of stumbling over his words. And I just said to him, hey, we're talking about a new, PA, and we're talking about this, and we're talking about that. And he looked at me like I was a crazy person. And he goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I went, oh, awkward. Cool. And we left. And we had that situation happen a couple times. Yeah. And I had come back to the office, and we were just kind of chatting about our sales process and vetting differently, and having some different, parameters maybe, or maybe we should just ask better questions before we just jump on a plane and go. At the time, we were sitting around, and Max Williams was on our team, and I was just sharing with them some of the stuff that, I was frustrated about. And I was like, man, we clearly didn't have the vision from the senior leadership before we stepped into this conversation. Yeah. And we were just kind of riffing and having a conversation. He goes, oh man, back, in my day at my church, we just always had this statement of, gear follows vision. And I went, that's it. And it just stuck. And it became something for us where we go, okay, if we don't understand vision, why are we pursuing a technology conversation?
Yeah.
But what was shocking is as we started to continue to keep trying to refine this idea and this approach, we would talk to so many different production leaders, so many different folks that kind of occupy that space, and we would start asking questions about vision. What's gnarly is most of them couldn't answer that question. And so that really began to open up this dynamic that we go, man, there's some things here that we really need to help get alignment with these folks, with the rest of their executive team or their executive leadership, so that we can help them be the most successful that they can possibly be when it comes to a technology solution.
Yeah. I have been that person, guilty, by the way, of like, man, I'm thinking back to a day I was on staff in a church in St. Louis. And I had my vision that I really wanted for that technology, right? I wanted, touring quality PA. We were mixing through some atrociously designed LCR system. So much so that
good. That's a pleasure.
It was more is more was the design, I think.
I love that.
And so when Chris Rayburn came out to retune it for me, he was like, what if we turn off 2/3 of the boxes? And I was like, that sounds weird. Don't we need all of them? And he said, no, you don't. He's like, you're just
true Rayburn fashion.
Yeah. It was just a no. And so I was chasing this PA and so I started to talk to Chris about getting a PA. And what I realized is that when I brought that proposal to my executive pastor, and I don't think he laughed, but he wasn't happy to be getting that $500,000, like, hey, we need to do this now type thing on his desk.
Right.
It highlighted how far off I was from what they wanted, right? Like they were like, no, we've got the ROI on this PA. It's got another 5 years in it. And honestly, we think it sounds fine. And that was a trigger for me of like, oh, I need to understand what you mean by you want excellence and you want us to be incredible music and worship and all this stuff, because my bar and your bar are way off. And so I had to start digging into them on what does it actually mean that you're looking for, right? Because where we did get to with Rayburn by turning 2/3 of the boxes off was an okay place. There was sound in all the right spots. But at the same point, it didn't hit my bar, and I had to start asking them, what is the bar? So I would be curious, like, what do you see as the question you tend to ask when you're trying to drive towards vision and maybe there isn't vision or there's unclear mismatched visions?
Yeah, no, that's a lot to unpack.
For sure.
And I think that it's a scenario that we find ourselves in a lot. Because you have to think about what are the inputs and the places of inspiration. Your places of inspiration for being a great mix engineer and what excellence is way different than what that executive leader is. And so ultimately, there's a big chasm there, and we're just trying to get them to speak similar languages.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, for me, if I'm approached by a production guy, and they start asking about new gear, immediately I'm like, well, what does your leadership think of that decision? Do they see the same problems you see? And sometimes you have to approach it. If they go, no, they have no idea I'm talking to you right now. I'm like, whoa, time out. I'm not going to go down this road with you just yet, because that dog won't hunt, right? And so ultimately we have to find ourselves in a position of going, okay, how can we begin to extrapolate from each of those people? Can we get them both at the table? And can we start asking questions around what's the vision, long-term vision for the ministry? How do they feel their production experience is? What do they think is lacking on a Sunday morning? And then from there, a lot of times they're like, no, it's pretty good. And the tech guy's going like, what do you mean? Like, it's together with duct tape and baling wire at this moment. They're like, sounds great, because they're not thinking about the PA. They're thinking about, are people engaging in worship? Do I have the right staff members to be able to handle this growing church? Are we overextended from a budgetary place? There's 1,000 things running through that person's mind, and the tech dude is focused on what's right in front of them.
Right.
And so how do you move someone from tunnel vision to seeing the bigger picture? But you got to get them to zoom out a little bit and start asking different questions to starting to pull some of that information out. A lot of times we do find ourselves in a place of what feels like we're facilitating conversations between those sides of the house. And a lot of times there's a lack of access. Sometimes there's a lack of there's a lot of story and narrative that's being made up around, this is what I think excellence means. And this is what I think our Sunday morning is supposed to be. And in reality, there's a lack of language and an ability sometimes to explain what that senior leader wants from a Sunday morning. So a lot of times you have to give them things to react to. Where have you been that you've been inspired by? Where have you been that's done it well? What church do you look to that you go, man, they nail it front to back from an experience perspective? And then that can start to help put some shape to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it can be a really abstract and ethereal conversation if you're not careful.
Right.
And so you start to go, okay, if everybody is on the same page and they go, we know half of our speaker system is terrible. It's 25 years old and we only have half the drivers. And as much as we push it on Sunday morning, it sounds like absolute dog water. So, okay, then you start asking questions of, well, what does success look like for this project? And get them to articulate it. Who is impacted the most when we make these decisions? If you could throw budget out the window, like, could you define for me, like, what are you really like hopeful of that people would feel in the room? And, you know, I think that some of those things, and we've got a million other questions that we can talk about, and some that maybe we could even, you know, put together in a list and hand to folks to help them get to that point. But really the main thing is that I wish that more tech folks and more leadership team folks would just start having conversation and stop assuming that each of them knows what winning looks like. So most tech guys are responsible for what the weekend experience is supposed to look like, and they have no idea what winning looks like. And yet they've not stopped and thought for a second, maybe I should go have a conversation with a leader and go, hey man, how do you feel about Sunday morning? If you could give me a piece of advice or maybe something you'd like me to change, what would that be? I'd love feedback. Feedback's a gift. Feedback in a system, not so much. But feedback from this perspective is a gift. And yet we don't facilitate those conversations all that often, or we don't think we can have them. So it's like, hey, maybe get out from behind your console and go ask someone on senior leadership, hey, how do you feel? Can you walk the room with me? Hey, can you tell me, is my mix okay? Is there something that's driving you nuts? Or hey, can you look at our lighting looks and tell me what you think during worship? And I don't know if it's fear or insecurity or just not feeling comfortable, but we got to start having those conversations because we all want the same thing. We want people to engage in worship. We want to help people experience Jesus, and we want people to get discipled and to grow in their faith. Okay, great. If that's the winning goal, then we should have more conversations to make sure that we're actually like trying to figure out what the target is and how to hit it.
Well, and I think I love what you said there about having something to react to. Because there's not a seminary that I'm aware of out there that teaches a senior leader how to communicate his vision for technology, right? He's taught how to preach. I mean, they're barely taught how to run an elder board meeting. I
had one business administration class in Bible college.
Oh, one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
One.
Go lead a church.
And I can tell you as a 19, 20-year-old, I really paid attention to that one because that felt important. Nope. So, I did real good in school. No, ask my wife.
Let's not go down that road. Like having something to react to, like your production person, your technology person, they are an expert in technology. And so they can help put something in front of that leader to react to, right? And to say like, hey, here's something that inspires me. Here's why. What do you think about this? And that could be how the mix is constructed. That could be, hey, we went to that concert together or we went to that conference together. How was that worship for you? How was not just the volume, but how was the experience? Did you hear people singing next to you? Did you like that? Did you not like that? And that reaction can then lead to the conversation of like, okay, did we like it so much we want to imitate it and learn from it? Or do we want to iterate on it, right? And do something that's more aligned with us.
That's a good thought.
Now, I'd love to pivot and say, there's the good and the bad and the ugly when it comes to gear spec, right? And that's part of what we see that is frustrating when we walk into a space. And, you know, I remember Max telling the story of seeing just tens of thousands of dollars sitting on a shelf of brand new gear not being used because there was not vision for it, but there was a credit card to swipe.
Right.
And so like, I'd love to know, I know you have a couple of stories of like when you've walked into a space or we've done an install and things didn't align.
No, there's been a handful of them. You know, I know specifically, I can tell you of a recent story where there was a fella who the budget was tight as it was, and we were doing it was a full reno in a community, And ultimately there was a huge portion of the budget that was utilized for a specific console. This seems to be where this is a common one. And ultimately it's the flavor of whatever console that specific tech person is like, this is the bee's knees, like the best, like this is what I have to have because so-and-so on tour uses it and it's going to take things to the next level. Okay, cool. But there was so much that got slashed out of that the original dream to make that thing happen.
Yep.
Okay, fast forward. Install's done. Everything's there. You can see where the cuts have been made. Lighting took a hit. The LED wall, center LED wall wasn't even a possibility now. Handful of different things because this church, like most churches, didn't have a blank check.
No.
They were like, man, this is the most significant thing we've done in almost 25 years.
Yeah, 0 churches have a blank check we figured out.
I mean, I think the thing that sucked about this whole thing, and yes, I said sucked, because it pains my heart when we see these decisions. And I kind of feel a lot of times as a dad, I have grown kids now, but I think one of the major lessons that I've learned as a parent is a lot of times there are moments I can do this and moments I can't. But I spend a lot of time trying to save my kids from themselves. I see something bigger and I go, oh man, I wish you would look up instead of being so focused on this one thing because that's going to be way better for you. Yeah. Well, what ended up happening in this moment, that specific console was purchased. The rest of this stuff was like, oh, we'll piecemeal together over the next several years. 2 months after the project launches, that guy who made that big decision is no longer at that church. And they don't have volunteers that can run it. They're paying contractors now because they can't find anybody in their small town to run that thing. And you go, dang, dude, I wish you would have listened to me. Because in the end, we can ask all the questions in the world of who's the end user, who's the operator of this. I just sat with a church a handful of weeks ago and they're like, we have a high value for everything has to be volunteer friendly. And so we're going to make decisions around volunteer friendly gear. And we know that there's better stuff out there, but this is a high value for our ministry. We have another client that we've talked to that used to pay everybody to run this hugely professional setup. And now they're going, that's not who we are anymore. The ministry's changing and evolving and we need to pivot and make this decision. And I appreciate that they're able to articulate those things. But sometimes folks just can't see what's right in front of them. And ultimately the church suffers. We've seen that over and over and over again. I know you've seen that at time or two as well. I mean, you've been here a few minutes longer than me actually. So
those examples are really tough, where, man, the church spent money that they didn't need to spend or they spent the wrong dollars. And I think that's where it hurts our hearts from the ministry perspective. And there's a lot of executive pastors and senior leaders who are signing checks based off the recommendation of that tech person. I think the other thing I want to unpack real quick too with you is the vision of the church overall should dictate your technology implementation. And there's also churches that have grown at an incredible rate that are saying, we're not going to build the big behemoth. We're going to go and influence our campuses. So I'd love to hear, like, how does that change their vision for technology?
Yeah. So one example is I know of a community right now who, they have a huge, 3,000 seat room or so. And they need technology upgrades in this moment. However, they're actually trying to get away from 3,000 seats and move towards a smaller situation, and then to become a sending place. So then you go, if I'm approached by a tech dude that's going, our PA's tired. It's trying to cover 3,000 seats, and it's really old. And if we just start going down that road with them of this is what we're supposed to do, and we miss the fact that leadership is actually completely changing and evolving how they see ministry done in this particular day and age, we've missed the mark. And so we have to now move into a place where we're going, okay, how can we help you strategize on downsizing, And it still probably needs a PA upgrade, but it doesn't need the same PA.
Right.
And probably needs to be deployed differently because it's probably going to be a different room completely after that.
Right.
And then ultimately, too, what dollars could be saved that could then be used to help folks be sent.
Yeah.
I was just talking with a tech fellow the other day who was telling me about they really needed an acoustics upgrade in their auditorium, but it was really, really hard for leadership to get on board because they couldn't understand it because they kept putting it through the lens and the filter of, I need another children's worker. I need another, and they just started going down the list.
Right.
And they're like, there's only so much dollars to go around. And that's where I would really encourage healthy discussions around those things. And I truly believe that when churches can move into that place of almost wrestling and rumbling over those types of decisions, it's way more healthy than not talking about it at all.
Yeah.
But immediately, a lot of times we get defensive because this is what we want, right? But it's not about what we want.
Right.
It's about what are we collectively called to do and what is God taking us as a ministry and what does the future look like? So much of the time we're right here. We're right in this focused place of, let me just focus on what's right here, right now. And we're not thinking, man, 5 years from now, we might be doing church differently.
Yeah.
And it's really important to start having those conversations with leadership and go, hey, can we just dream a little bit? Can you just share your heart with me about where we're going?
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to say a bunch of technology things. However, we need to be better at translating vision for the church and moving that into technology solutions to go, we're really set up well to be able to handle that X, Y, or Z thing, or actually we're not, and we would need to make these specific changes. And to come back and let that be an honest conversation, not a tell me yes or no. Or we slide just a big, $500,000 proposal or $1 million proposal in front of somebody and go, this is what's going to meet your vision. And they suck in a lot of air and it's a non-starter.
Right.
Because it's like, no, this is what I want.
Yeah.
But if you can actually start to fight for the heart of the community and what's God called us to, what's the story of God in this community, what are the big pillars that we're going to, put up and say, this is our guideposts for the future. And what is God saying that we need to do as a community? Now, all of a sudden, it's a we conversation, not a me and you conversation.
Right.
And that moves it from what can be a standstill and an awkward moment to no, man, we're fighting for the same things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of, if I could encourage any production folks, I would say a lot of folks don't understand that. And if you can lay your agenda down and pick up the we conversation and go, what has God called us to? Right. It steps into a whole different place of relationship.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the most poignant example for me, we were in a proposal conversation with the church. We'd put together a budget, trying to navigate the needs of the vision and the production needs. And this church is growing. They're a massive church now. But I remember it was over budget. And in this meeting, the production folks are trying to say, like, we need this, we need this, we need this. And the XP stepped in the room and said, hold on, we need to have a family conversation. Y'all are welcome to stay. Mm-hmm. But the family conversation is every dollar that we're saving on this project that I don't have to spend on technology, I'm sending to widows and orphans.
Yeah.
Right now that can also be a club to wield at people. So let's not go there. But at the same point, that reframed it for me in a very clear way to say, no, you're right. The dollars we spend here actually have an effect outside this room. Mm-hmm. And so let's make sure every dollar is sharp, right? And every piece of technology is truly needed. Can we build for the growth? Absolutely. But let's make sure today it's needed because there's widows and orphans today who need those dollars.
Well, I think I love that framing and rephrasing. And I would challenge more churches to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because so much of the time, if I'm honest, I think we have built, specifically in our American church culture, we have built everything around this weekend experience. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of dollars, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of things that we do that, whether we're using words like excellence or maybe sometimes perfectionism with how that weekend experience comes across.
Yeah.
But in reality, we've been called to make disciples. Mm-hmm. We've been called to preach the gospel.
Yep.
We've been called and told that we need to care about the widows, the orphans, and the least of these. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions that I always challenge folks with, and it's just something that haunts me, it keeps me up at night, is to go, if this church was gone from this community tomorrow, would your community miss you?
Oof.
Would they know
Yeah.
that you close up your shop
Right.
and you're not there anymore? And I think sometimes we forget the external things that we're supposed to do in a community, and we don't necessarily have the resources to go after those things because we've spent too much of our resource on focusing on the Sunday experience. That's a completely different conversation, and I'm not trying to take this conversation there. However, it's something that I have to look at in the business that we're in and going, are we really focused on the right things and keeping the main thing the main thing?
Right.
And I think that preaching the gospel is one thing, but caring for the least of these is also equally as important in my mind. And I think that through our love, through our compassion and how we show up in our communities, people then get to see Christ. And from there, people will be discipled and people will get to know him. And it's through his kindness that draws us to repentance. And I think that most of the time we're focused on, was it loud enough? Was it exciting enough? And was the show big enough? And I go, we've missed it if that's the position that we're in. And that's one of the things that I think we struggle with from a production perspective, because all of the things that we look to as inputs are a lot of times the latest and greatest concerts and tours that are out there. But most pastors are looking at other communities that are reaching their communities really, really well. So our inputs are different. And ultimately their heart bleeds for something different. And so as production folks, I think we have a responsibility to go, where does our heart lie? And what are the things that are beating within our own soul for the work that we get to put our hands to every single day? And it's not just to push faders and to make a room really loud and exciting, but it's to create an experience so that people find Jesus. And from that moment with Jesus, lives are transformed and communities absolutely are revolutionized. And so I think that sometimes we just miss it because our eyes aren't focused and our hearts are not focused on the right thing.
No, I completely agree. And I think the healthiest situations we've seen is when that production person and that leader are so aligned that they can say like, no, this is truly the need. Absolutely. And we get to say like, it's serving the vision really, really well.
I'm going to brag on a church really quickly. It made a major impact on me when I first started. We're in Colorado and there's a church here called Flatirons, and Flatirons built this massive room, and it's a really cool, rad space. And there were technology decisions that were made in that moment of building. How many seats is that room?
4,500.
4,500-ish. There was a lot of flack that was given for some of the gear choices that were made in that. And what was amazing, Chris Coleman was the production director at the time. And we were doing a tour there. Chris Rayburn was taking me on a tour, and we had some other people with us. And someone kind of threw out kind of a snarky comment at him. Why'd you do that? And it kind of happened 3 times. And he goes, come with me for a second. And I was like, whoa,
it's getting real now.
Coleman's about to lay law down real quick. Right. And so we walked out of this room. And he walked over to this wall that's in the lobby of all these missions organizations and all of these ministry partners. And he goes, every dollar I didn't spend here goes here.
Let's go.
And I went, drop the mic and walk away. And he goes, yes, we could have done other things. Why? Because we had the money to do it. It was not a position of, we don't have the money for it. He goes, we just have our values in the proper alignment. And he goes, this is why we made those decisions. Do you have any more questions? And I went, oh snap. And yet I also leapt for joy of going, that's keeping the main thing the main thing. And I was really appreciative of just that perspective. And it was so unapologetic. And he said it, he's like, from top down, this is how we feel. And I go, man, good on you. High fives and smiles for that one.
Absolutely.
For sure.
He's so clear about his church's vision. That, he bought, a good quality PA. Good quality consoles. Again, in 2011, we're talking about.
That was forever ago. Feels like an eternity ago.
It was a couple minutes. And yet, because it served the vision, they've maximized that PA for years and years now. Right. And so I think, again, he was so clear on it. But I think for a lot of our folks here listening, they don't know even where to start. So I know we've got a worksheet, I think, that we want to give some folks, because there's probably 20 questions that you've iterated on over the years to say, how do we actually get to a place of alignment around the vision for, the worship experience or the kids auditorium or the lobby or whatever it is.
Right.
You've been refining this list over years and years. I think we'll give that out, but I would be curious, is there one question that somebody could start with today to be like, first, my recommendation, I'll start with that. Go take your senior leader to coffee.
Yeah.
Buy them coffee that you don't expense. How about that?
Yeah.
And then start asking these questions on, hey, I want to understand and unpack the vision that God's given you because you are an authority over me.
Right.
And I need to serve you.
Right.
So can you just help me understand? I have no agenda other than I want to ask these questions.
Yeah. I think that's a great first step. And I think that we would all be in better places and would see way more unity around some of these projects and even just some of these things that we're talking about if we could just get people talking.
Yeah.
But if I'm speaking to a group of people, we got to start with why. And there's probably like 6 or 7 questions around why.
I've got them already.
Yeah, we'll give those, out. But
yeah.
I think you got to start with why, because if you don't have the why clearly nailed, in the midst of those decision-making process, you don't have anything as your anchor point to go back to. Right. And I think that if everybody understands the why, we can use that as the filter, the lens, and we're all, that's actually probably 80% of the battle right now. 75, 80% of that is why. And then we got to talk about who's being impacted the most by this. And if the answer is the person that's being most impacted by this is the dude standing behind the console, it's usually the wrong who.
Let's go.
I'm sorry. You can be mad. Put that in the comments. Put it in the comments. And so ultimately, if you're the only who, then why are you pushing this thing forward? And so now, if you told me, which I just had this conversation the other day with another church, was they were like, this whole section can't hear because the coverage is so bad. Okay.
Should probably point a speaker over there.
Probably. Like we should probably address that because we're limiting people hearing the gospel and being able to enter into a worship experience. So that's a big deal. And then ultimately, can we define success? Like what does success look like? And if we can start to get really, really clear about the why, about the who, and what does success look like, and we can all put our hands in the middle, man, we are in really, really good places. And then from there also too, I just think that some of this stuff, because it's so hard to articulate and can be out there, it's really important to potentially ask some questions around who have you been inspired by? What are some things that you've seen that you really enjoy? Have there been rooms that you've walked into that have been really great? Because that can help put shape to this kind of crazy, abstract, sometimes ethereal idea that we don't fully, it's really tough to put shape to it. And so I think that some of those things would be just really important. I know there's a million questions that we have that we could maybe put in some show notes or hand to somebody and we'll do that. But I think that just starting there would be a really good thing.
And I think it would move the conversation forward in a much better way. So, man, Nick, thanks for unpacking that with us. For
sure.
There's such a heartbeat and a passion for the church in all of this, that it gets me really excited to think that somebody could leave today and then go ask a better question. Not that they haven't asked questions before, they can ask a better question. And so I think, again, talking about the who and the why, if we just started there, we'd be a lot better. So thanks everyone for joining us on this GFV Vision podcast episode. Please join us again on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We are going to have that worksheet available for you. And so you can hit us in the DMs and we'll send those over. Thanks.